Hi, and welcome to Simply Happy Conversations. I'm Narelle King, and in this Simply Happy conversation, I'm talking with Kathy, a trauma-informed yoga, movement facilitator, and personal trainer. She's also the founder of Exhale and Be. Kathy shares what trauma is, how it affects the nervous system, the benefits of becoming trauma-informed, and what makes yoga and movement trauma-informed. This conversation is a video recording that you can watch on YouTube. Let's jump into this Simply Happy guest conversation. Welcome to Simply Happy Conversations. I'm Narelle King, wellness and organisational coach and yin and nidra yoga instructor. This podcast will help you create more time using organisational strategies so that you can start to simplify your life and prioritise your health. I'll be sharing conversations with other health and organisational experts and solo episodes with tips to help you simplify your life and prioritise your health. So today on Simply Happy Conversations, I'm talking with Kathy, a trauma-informed yoga and movement facilitator, and she's the founder of Exhale and Be. Her pronouns are she and her, and welcome, Kathy.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited, Narelle. I feel like a bit of a movie star.
Really?
I'm not. I just sort of feel like it.
It's so lovely to have you and have you come on and share your wealth of knowledge. How about we start and you can tell us about things you like to do when you may be not working?
Okay. So, I spend a lot of time working, and I do find my job really important, and it's something that I spend a lot of time doing outside of work. I love my dog. I'm one of those crazy dog ladies. And also, it's funny when I was sort of thinking about these questions before, about what brings you joy and what do you enjoy doing. This is kind of like a segue, I suppose, into trauma and people that experience trauma. We don't really find a lot of joy in things. And I'm kind of working with my therapist at the moment to try to like, Kath, okay, great. You're talking about trauma and you're doing these courses and you're doing a new portal. What are you doing for you? I'm like, oh, yeah, good point. So you know what I've started doing, Narelle?
No. What?
Zumba dancing. I used to dance 400 years ago, and it's at the local kind of neighbourhood centre in Leopold, and it's for the more, so much the mature lady, but it's low impact. And I can't help but laugh my head off at this, not at the instructor. She's just this Cuban barrel of joy, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm falling over and I'm trying to do these ones, and that brings me joy. So I'm going to keep going to those classes.
And I'm going to have to ask you off air, but I bet I know who it is, and it's the same person that I used to go to years ago, and it just gave me joy every day. Every Thursday night I went to her class, and it was just beautiful. It was so much fun.
You just can't help but laugh. Yeah. And you don't feel, it feels like I'm not going to say she's actually going to come on to when we talk about my platform at the end. She's coming onto the platform to do a class too. So it feels really accessible. Like you don't feel like anyone's watching you or you have to do this, you have to do that. Yeah. Just start to move around. It's lovely.
Yeah, it is beautiful. I actually got if it's the same teacher, I got her to come and do some with kids. And it was so great to see primary school kids doing it as well. Yeah, she's just so full of joy if it's the same person. But I'm sure even a lot of Zumba teachers are full of joy.
It's like, is that really you're medicated? Not that if you're medicated, that's fine too, whatever works for you. But I'm like, it seems to happen every week. No, it's lovely. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to find more joy outside of work.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you too for sharing that honesty around though trauma. It is difficult to access joy for some people.
Yeah. And I suppose so it just sort of interest of transparency, and it's not to kind of bang on about myself, but I do have complex PTSD from developmental trauma and attachment ruptures with both primary caregivers. So that's just lived experience. It's kind of when I'm talking about things, it's because it's something that I deal with on a daily basis. Like a lot of people, there's nothing special about me. Well, special, maybe a little bit cooked, but I'm okay with that, Narelle. I'm out and proud.
So maybe talk about trauma. Like, what is trauma to start with?
Oh, if it's okay, I've got some notes here.
Yeah,
it is. I've got some notes here just so that I'm doing it justice. And these certainly aren't my definitions. They're from the great researchers and writers who I won't sort of bore you with. And just, I suppose, acknowledging that this kind of, I hate to use the word industry, it's not regulated. So anyone can kind of call themselves anything, can say it's this and can say it's that. So that's why I actually want to quote the people rather than it really sort of pretending that I've invented this. So trauma is not what happens to us, but it's what happens inside of us as a result of what happened to us, if that makes any sense.
Mm.
Also, trauma is not a story of something that happened in the past. Trauma is the imprint that all experiences leave on your soul and your body as your sensations. Oh, sorry, it's uplifting, isn't it? Also, this one's important. Trauma comes back as a reaction, not a memory. It also could be defined as too much, too fast, or too soon. So, yeah, trauma's not what happened to us, but what we hold inside too in the absence of an empathic witness. And trauma is perhaps the most avoided, ignored, belittled, denied, misunderstood, and untreated cause of human suffering. Sorry, that's uplifting. And I suppose just before I go into now, maybe I'll give you some of the definitions around trauma. Just an activation warning for anyone that might be watching. Like, I'm presuming because we're online, you'd be in a space where you're hopefully able to access some internal safety. But yeah, I'm going to use some words that may be a little bit activating for people. So just a bit of a warning. If you were to shut me off, shut me off. Okay. So as I said, like, general definitions of trauma would be acute trauma. So that can be when something happens like suddenly, and it's typically like a single incident. That could be car accident, sexual assault, natural disaster, or a medical event. Chronic trauma might be defined as like when you're exposed to an ongoing traumatic environment over time. So childhood abuse or neglect, domestic violence, bullying, sexual abuse, living in poverty or war. I mean, I can't even start to go on about what's happening in the world at the moment. And then we've got complex trauma, and that's when you're exposed to several different traumatic experiences. Or it's a combination of that acute and chronic trauma that I just sort of went through. Vicarious trauma, and that's the trauma that we might feel when we're witnessing somebody else experience a traumatic event. Intergenerational trauma. So when, our parents haven't had the resources or the skills to be able to process their own trauma, that can be passed down to the next generation. And then maybe transgenerational trauma, and this is when it can be transferred to subsequent generations beyond our parents. And we see this with, our first generations people. That's known as transgenerational trauma.
And is that one, though, been around, like, have we known a lot about that? Or is that quite recent that we've found
trauma?
These? Yeah, no, like generational trauma. Have we known about that for a long time?
Yeah, this stuff's been around for such a long time, and I'm trying really hard not to be disrespectful, but just with social media and this whole thing around, trauma, and it's all new. But then if we practice some nervous system regulation, or we have an ice cold bath, or we do some yoga, or we practice mindfulness, that can kind of help us, and we'll all be better. A lot of that stuff can be supportive. And a lot of the time for trauma survivors, it can actually be quite damaging and harmful. So this is not new. It just seems to be, I'm trying to use the right words. I don't want to be disrespectful in any way, but it seems to be people think it's a new thing, and look at what's happened historically with First Nations people, for war that's going on. Yeah, and especially at this time, I'm just trying to be a little bit sensitive around that, because there's so much going on in the world. And this is why I'm so passionate about trauma as well. And without sounding naive, I wonder, if we could all learn more about it in order to sort of help ourselves firstly, and then our small group of influence, and maybe our bigger group of influence. If we learn about trauma-informed practices and a way of life, maybe we could actually make a bit of a difference.
Oh, for sure. Ooh. Which is exactly why I wanted you to come on and just to share that doing your, movement and yoga informed course, trauma informed course, has helped me not just in yoga, but also just in my work in general, and having that awareness, which I think so many people could get value from. And which is why I was like, I want you to come on and talk about it.
Oh, no, thanks. It's really great to hear, because it's kind of like, whilst it is trauma informed yoga and movement, I come from the trauma angle, not so much the yoga. Yoga is a beautiful modality. It can also be pretty harmful given that it's not regulated. And even when people, I think we discuss this on the course a lot when we talk about intention versus impact. Like we may have the best intentions with people. We might say, put your hands on your ribs and feel what it's like in your body to breathe in and breathe out. Feel your rib cage expand. If dissociation has been what's kept you alive, the last thing that's going to be supportive is asking me to feel into my body because I don't feel anything. And it's actually quite dangerous. And I don't know why I've gone off on this track. Why have I gone off?
Right.
Oh, I'm back now. Yes. I told you in the beginning that I'm a little bit.
That's all right.
Because the course is.
I mentioned the course, but that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That is perfect then. Segue into then what is trauma, yoga and movement? And because you just reminded me of one thing that I've tried to change, and even if you go back now and look at my social media, is because we talked about target area. And that is something that you're like told during yoga teacher training, the target area of the actual, the pose that you're learning, the shape that you're doing. And then I go back and see it. It's written, like I have it written in copy. And it's like, okay, trying to change that, subconsciously, because now it's, I'm used to saying that. But that was one thing that I took away from your course.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And it's just to like target. Yeah, of course, like in an assault sense or a trauma sense, you would never use the word target. But I don't think the intention is when we get taught that is people you kind of don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
and definitely. That whole thing around, say, yin yoga, for example, which when I first did a class, I'm like, oh, I hate this. And it's like, I better go and learn about it. And then I better trauma inform it because there's something in this. I understand, because I've been a PT since 2007. I understand how important, the sort of stretching and working the fascia and joints, that kind of stuff, and how beautiful stillness may be. Stillness may also be extremely activating. So this is where the trauma-informed stuff comes in. It's not just about using the language. I'll often hear people say, oh, that trauma-informed yoga, that means using invitational language. And then we'll go into a class and say, I invite you to have your eyes closed or maybe a soft gaze. That's not invitational. Invitational is, I invite you to have your eyes open or closed, or perhaps a soft gaze feels more useful for your body today. You can't invite someone and then not let them have their eyes open. So it's more about being neutral. Where I think I know where I was going with that before, Narelle, is it's not just for yoga people and movement people. It's for kind of anyone, as you were saying in your work.
Yeah, definitely.
It's helped with a couple of things. I know it does with me. Like my window of tolerance is pretty small, and I can sort of fire up and fire down pretty quickly. But now I really do try to make an effort and go, Kathy, stop. If you can, just take a breath and see what might be happening here for somebody else, and also what's happening for you. It's not this person's fault. Maybe you're being activated because there's something in you. It's got nothing to do with them. So don't be cranky at them if you can, because I'm a little bit old and cranky too, Narelle.
Yes, that's what happens, isn't it? We just do what we can tolerate.
Do you want me to start? Do you want me to bang on a little bit about trauma-informed yoga?
I would, yeah. So share movement, because I don't want it to just be pigeonholed to yoga. I think it's like, I love the idea of movement is it's nice.
And it's whatever works for you. If you want to run, if you want to swim, if you want to do yoga, or you want to play netball, you want to go to Zumba. These things, like we know physiologically how helpful movement is. I think where it gets a little bit tricky is when we start to so the only way to do that is use mindset, just make a choice, like get out of bed and get going. That can be really supportive. That can also just fill me with so much guilt and shame, in the sense there's times where our prefrontal cortex is offline in the brain and you can't make a choice. If people, I'm pretty sure, with depression or different types of anxiety disorders or whatever you want to call them, if they could make a choice every time to get out of bed and move, they probably would. But it's sort of, the brain 101. We've got the mind that's kind of, it refers to our ability to think and feel and engage in physical activity. And our brain is actually the physical organ in our head that supports these functions. So if our brain has some malfunctions, which you'll find in PTSD and a lot of other so-called, I don't like the word disorders, then that means it's going to actually impact our mind and our ability to make choices. So anyway, yes, not just yoga. So to be trauma informed means that you honour that everybody not only has the ability, but the right to agency, autonomy, sovereignty, and self-determination, kind of like across everything that we do. So when we bring it into the movement space, be it PT, be it yoga, be it kind of anything. Trauma-informed movement acknowledges the neurological impacts of trauma, so physical, psychological, emotional, and complex. And the high instances of survivors experiencing a disconnection from their physical bodies. It's so common. So this approach is people-centered and it's explorative. So the focus on is what's felt, noticing the sensations and learning to make choices that begin to rebuild trust between the body and the mind. So over time is the key here. So that doesn't just happen. So when we're looking at a trauma-informed approach, we do what's called titration. So basically that just means drip feeding. And one of the ways we could do that is through pendulation, which you may have noticed when we were doing our course. So I might have said something like, the invitation to perhaps check in with your body here and see if you're noticing any sensations, knowing that if you're not, that's perfectly fine. So I'm not being coercive and telling you how you should feel, like this should feel juicy or this should feel relaxing or this should feel, I'm not going to coerce you into telling you how you should feel. And it's the same with, say, PT. Like I've been a PT forever, but I didn't actually know I was trauma-informed until I learned what trauma-informed actually means. I don't say, this is what you should be eating, this is how many sets you should be doing and how many reps you should be doing and drop and give me 20, and all that sort of stuff, and bypass how people are feeling. It's like, okay, what are you maybe looking for? Give you some options. You can do them or not do them. If not, there's another exercise that maybe we can get the same result out of. Or maybe today you just want to rest, or maybe you want to have a chat. So, and it's done over time, and that kind of, so over time, trauma-informed movement can help survivors like regulate their nervous systems, again, over time, reduce and perhaps better manage anxiety, improve body awareness and tolerance, for the physical sensations, and increase psychological flexibility. Yeah, just the key is over time. And we do it ever so slowly. Does that make sense?
Oh, and I love it's all about the options, isn't it? And the actual wording, how you present that. Like you said, it's not cohesion, like it's coercion. That's it. The 5 components of, of being trauma informed that really could be used in every workplace, not just movement, isn't it?
Brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's as simple as things like, and we were saying this before about intention versus impact, and it's like, oh my gosh, if you do this, you're going to feel so much better.
Yeah,
the intention might be really simple, but how on earth are you going to know what I feel? And I often hear yin teachers, not often, some in particular, will say that, you have to stay in that shape with your eyes closed for the full nervous system cycle to release your trauma. Firstly, how on earth, as a yoga teacher, would I know what your nervous system cycle is? If I'm not trauma trained and trauma responsive and you have a trauma release, I can do so much damage there. So it's also about understanding our scope of practice and having a referral network out. But as you say, back to these 5 components, they're more of trauma-sensitive yoga as opposed to trauma-informed. It's a very specific TCTSY model, which I'm trained in. But you're right. It's like invite people to do things. Maybe not. Don't tell them how they're going to feel. If we're trying to help people start to feel safer in their own bodies and access internal safety, you can't be sort of saying this is how you should feel or do this and it's going to be a heart opener or a hip opener or a release, or you're going to feel that stretch here. You may feel nothing, or you may feel it's somewhere completely different. And also in yin yoga, giving people the option to people, I have discussions with yin teachers. Say, Kathy, you can't be telling them that they can come out of this shape and move to another one if they like, or bring in some movement. Like, yes, they can, because then it's self-determination. They're making a choice. And I've even had a lot of yoga teachers that do my classes. Or I don't want to sound like one of those, oh, I know everything, Narelle, because I so don't. But say after, oh, wow, that's probably one of the best practices I've ever been to, because I'm just doing what I want to do. I don't feel that I have to make this shape or go there. I'm like, preach, sister, brother, they, them, or whatever. Yeah.
Yes. And look, to be honest, just as a little side note, like Good Folk, where you teach, where I go to myself, you see it with the other teachers. I hear their language, the words that they use. Perhaps you might like some movement. I mean, I went to a class this morning and it's like you can stay in downward dog, or you might like something else, or you can move while you're there, whatever you like.
Yeah. And I'm not I was having this discussion the other day. I actually did a 4 or 5 hour kind of workshop on Good Folk Yoga's recent 200-hour teacher training, which is phenomenal, because one of my goals is to actually have trauma-informed frameworks in all yoga trainings. I don't understand. This is just me personally. One of the things we talk about in yoga is ahimsa, so non-violence, reducing pathways to harm. And if we know how prevalent mental, is it unwellness or mental health, however you know it to be, and we know about abuse and we know about trauma, how can we not? I don't understand. But it's not like you can't have a strong flow that's directive. If that's what the class is presented as, and you come into classes like, folks, today you've come to a strong vinyasa flow class, that kind of means we're going to be into shapes and out of shapes quickly. I'm going to give you some choice, but please know, you can still do all that kind of stuff just with some little tweaks. And I know I love Good Folk Yoga, but how cool is that? You have a mainstream studio, and I'm banging on to the owner, J-Ro, poor thing, she didn't have a chance. She's like, well, okay, what do we do? I'm like, seriously? And like, I have a lot of NDIS clients anyway that I work with. So we were able to, for help and plan manage participants, we can invoice them straight away. We found access to some other funding, 2 classes a week, capped numbers. Like, we're doing it. It's like a lot of yoga places, a lot of people were saying it, but are we being it? Yeah. We're accessible, we're inclusive. Oh, but not if you look like that. And no, we don't have classes that are specifically trauma-informed. Yeah, but it's just my thing. Like, I'm just banging on. I'm not saying everybody has to do it. A lot of people identify as not being trauma-informed, and that's cool too.
Yeah, but whatever it's just bringing this awareness out there for people to understand that maybe in all workplaces, not just in yoga and movement.
Yes. Well, there's a new platform coming out soon, which is going to offer that. So are we up to that one yet, or am I going back to other stuff?
No, you can tell us about it. Start telling us about it. So, yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, well, kind of, because it does stem from, I won't bang on about myself too much, but it does stem from, what I've experienced to date with people in the movement industry, and myself, I used to do it, so I'm not saying I'm holier than thou. It's like, this stuff's really important, and why don't we have it across? So I have a new platform coming out hopefully in the new year. And all the practices on the platform will either be trauma-aware or trauma-informed, everything. So that's what the platform is. There's kind of be like 3 silos, not silos, wrong choice of words, 3 bits, because I can't think of a better word. The first one will be for, let's say, consumers. So us, if we wanted to go and do any trauma-informed practices, or we just don't like going into studios, or maybe it's safer for us to do something online. There will be yoga, so yin yoga, flow. There'll be Zumba. The lady that I do my Zumba class is going to be on there. She's fantastic. Sorry, did I say Pilates? Did I say PT?
No.
Pilates, PT, some nervous system regulation practices, also breathwork practices. And I'm going to just sort of preface that by saying they're trauma-informed in the sense that we acknowledge that sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So you get to choose whether you do them, you get to choose whether you stop. And there'll be different ones where you go, I might want to have a crack at that. And there's not just me talking all the time. Angus Knott, he's a wonderful teacher and teacher trainer. Sophie Claridge from Good Folk Yoga, love Soph. Lily Coffey, who is a yoga teacher, Pilates teacher, studying to be an OT. She's fabulous. Yours truly will be doing some stuff. I won't be doing anything. I might do like the single arm handstands, hand push-ups. That's me. But also too, I'm going to have, hopefully I'm just about there for NDIS participants to be able to, it'll be membership based. Yeah, I've already got there. I've got offline. I'll talk to you about some other stuff. I found some other stuff in real. And then there'll be a portal, part of the portal for practitioners. So that might be anyone, yoga teachers, body workers, massage therapists, naturopaths. So
professional organisers.
Oh, you wait till we get to that.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. That's kind of the middle bit. And that'll
Okay.
be the course that we've just done online. And
Mm.
Angus will be on that too. So he'll be doing his variable anatomy. We're going to film that. So try and make it kind of interesting. And then have also some individual courses. So you might just want to take his 3-hour variable anatomy course. You might just want to do a 3-hour course with me, understanding trauma, and some other things we'll build up over time. And then the third part is for industry. So say, for example,
Schools and
a
everything for
hairdresser
teachers.
might be,
Yeah.
your hairdresser might do the one for themselves personally, but they might want to trauma inform their business.
Yeah.
And that'll be, if you could do some stuff online, or, maybe I come out and help with that. Professional organisers, there's some really simple things that we can do to help. Then also I'm going to have you access to a lot of kind of support services. I'm going to write a blog. I've just written my first
Oh,
one.
have you? Oh, you'll have to
Some
link to it.
fancy pictures done. And so there'll be that kind of, I just really hope to build over time. I don't know whether you remember, I won't sort of say probably on here, but one of the participants of the course, she was a doctor.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. So we're meeting next week to talk around how do we do that for like the medical industry. These people do an absolutely wonderful job, but a lot of them aren't particularly trauma informed, as we heard on my course. So how do we make this better for doctors? I'm like, well, yeah, let's work together then. So I really want it to be collaborative and organic. And so, yeah, that's hopefully going to be in the new year.
Oh, I can't wait. And I can't wait to share it. I'll share that on after, even though this will come out before the new year, but we can still share it after in the links. So then maybe just quickly share, how can, though, the trauma-informed yoga or movement help survivors? Like, how does it help, the nervous system? Because obviously the trauma affects the nervous system, but how can these, practices help?
Yeah, maybe if we just pull it back a bit to the nervous system and trauma.
Yeah.
Again, I'm reading off some notes here, but like after trauma, the world's experienced with a different nervous system that has like an altered perception of risk and safety. Full stop. So if we look at this concept of the window of tolerance, and we went through in the course, and I'm doing this in such a basic way. So please, for those that know more than me, don't think I'm kind of glossing over things. Like the window of tolerance is a concept originally developed by Dan Siegel, and it describes like the optimal zone of arousal for people to function in their everyday lives. So, you've heard of sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Sometimes if we get kind of activated, we maybe coming up into a hyper-arousal, so anxious, a bit angry, that kind of stuff. We've got strategies to non-traumatized people or people that aren't too traumatized to kind of come back in to that window. So we have a little bit of balance happening. Again, if we're pushed out to the bottom, which is hyperarousal, we shut down a little bit, we can maybe freeze a bit. People that aren't overly traumatized can come back in to that window of tolerance. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, great. So when we're traumatized, this window can be quite small. So say for me, I'm sounds or a tone of voice. So whilst I know that the trauma of what happened to me is not there, I'm safe. So logically I know that, but my body doesn't feel like that. So something will happen and I'm right back there. And I think people overuse the word trigger. So technically a trigger means that you're right back there with that trauma. So what's happening to you is actually physically happening to you inside of your body. So that's why I probably use the word activation or escalation a little bit more than I do the word trigger. So am I rambling again? Oh, yeah. So very easy. We come out and fly up to the top of it, or we come out of our window and go down the bottom. So that's that freeze dissociation type of thing. So when that happens, like I said before, our medial prefrontal cortex goes offline. So that part in the brain, we're more into our limbic system and brainstem where it's that, primal kind of thing. So we need to have strategies that can kind of bring us back into that window of tolerance before prefrontal cortex can come back online. Then we can start to make decisions around mindset and around, getting or recovering or whatever the word might be. So the way trauma-informed approach is that we understand all this stuff. We understand what happens in the brain. We understand that we need to do things really slowly. So, my partner's given me permission to use him as an example, so I'm not going too much into my own personal stuff. He's the loveliest bloke ever. But has some stuff around it. And I'm so, babes, why don't you maybe go up and have a chat to one of the, psychologists and see what happens? What do you reckon? He goes, oh, righto. And he did. And after the first 2 sessions, he's talking to me about my window of tolerance and his window of tolerance. But you could see it really helped him because he started to have some practices that were just nice and slow and titrated. He could choose. So that's where the trauma-informed approach happens. It's person-centered. Our comfort is probably less important than somebody else's reality. So there can be real power. Is it unbalance? Balance is in power with people that are yoga teachers, breathwork teachers, PTs, whatever it might be. When us telling you what will make you better, when actually it's about you letting us know in your time and us having the skills to be able to hold space for that.
That's beautiful. I like that. That hold
But it makes
space,
sense,
isn't it? Yes. So that the window of tolerance may build up over time, but it's holding this space, isn't it? And I like that balance of power. It's changing that balance of power. It's not because PE teacher for 20 odd years. Like, the balance of power was me. And really though, it's not. It's about the kids. How do you feel? What do you need from, from this session? Yeah.
And it's also too, and I get this with sometimes when I do my yoga course, people will go, oh God, Kathy, now that we know that, we can't teach anymore. I'm like, no. Oh gosh, it's a real fine line because, I've been told before that perhaps I should be a little bit more delicate when I'm delivering this information. Like there's nothing delicate about trauma and trauma recovery. It's messy, it's horrible, it's non-linear. And I forgot where I was going with that. PE teaching. Yeah, I don't know. It's just gone. What were we talking about?
The balance of power. The balance of power.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Even when it's not intentional, you hold so much power up the front there, and these sort of systems can actually perpetuate trauma, or it can help us heal and recover. And even when we don't sort of mean to. But I'm not saying that there can't be times when we're directive or directional.
Yeah.
Like I work with clients, and I do a lot of clients online, and I'll sort of say, hey, how are you feeling today? What I was thinking about, we might crank out a few of these, do that, and they'll go, no. Or, Kath, can you just tell me what to do today? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I'm not saying that doesn't work, but it's like let people make a choice. And you can kind of, if you're trained in this, you can see when that's too overwhelming for a client or a participant or someone in a smaller yoga class. And you can go, hey, let's move to this. It happened the other day. There was a new participant came into one of my classes at Good Folk Yoga. And it was a yin class, and she kind of knew that that's what it was. And as soon as it started, there was no possible way for her nervous system that she was going to be able to hold any stillness whatsoever. So it was kind of, you could see her feeling a bit, I started doing the class moving up the front whilst talking to the others about the shape. So we kind of did 2 in 1, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's beautiful to acknowledge someone else and what they needed out of this session rather than what you want them to get out of the session, isn't it?
Well, I'm not a young lady, so it's a little bit difficult with my mind to try and do a single leg. What do you call that? The downward dog with one leg in the – that's the thing, the 3-legged dog whilst trying to tell someone how to do this. Yeah.
Oh, my brain would struggle with that.
I do take it. I never take – I don't know how mainstream yoga teachers can do it. How they're fabulous. They have 20 people in a class and they can do a flow and they can breathe and they can do all that at the same time. I have no clue. Yeah. So but all jokes aside, I'm so passionate about it. It's like you say, if we all did it just a little bit, imagine
the impact on our world. Yeah. So Kathy, how can people connect with you?
Well, Narelle, it's so cute. At the moment, I've actually shut my website off for Exhale and Be, only because it's kind of I'm just bouncing around there because a lot of this information that's on there. Like I used to have a little studio which I don't have anymore. I'm not actually taking on any PT clients. I'm transitioning into this new platform. But if you have a look at, I've still got my what do you call it, Instagram?
Yeah.
So exhale _and _be, and you can contact me through that, and you'll find my sort of all my details there. And as I said, I'm transitioning over onto this new platform. So probably the best way is by –
the new platform will have its own website and a new name and new branding and everything.
Oh, would you stop it? It's I have an investor, so I'm very, very grateful. It's quite fancy. And all jokes aside, we've done all the market research. So it's okay for me to bang on about stuff, but a lot of market research around this. Yeah, we'll have a new name, but I'm going to probably keep that to myself at the minute.
Yeah.
We're in the design and development stage of that. The website's being coded as we speak. Had all the pictures done at the Birch Room here in Leopold with the different facilitators. It's really exciting. And so we're at the filming stage now.
Yes, so go on to Instagram because you can see your stories and you share little snippets of what's going on behind the scenes, which I think is really exciting for people to see the development of what it is in the end. I really love that sort of thing anyway. I'm a behind the scenes person.
Oh, thanks. The branding people said, Kathy, when you do this podcast, do not be telling your friend Narelle about the names and what we're doing. Can you hold a little bit back? I'm like, yeah, okay. But it's pretty fancy. Well, I think it is. Yeah, it's exciting.
Maybe, I'm not sure, I'll have to look at the dates, but maybe this might go out when you're about to announce that and then we can put it there. If not, I'll then have to do an update of how what it ends up being so we can launch it.
Yes, that would be exciting. I would love that.
Oh, Kathy, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a topic that is hard to talk about for people and listen to, but it's people like you that we need in the world sharing more about it.
Don't you get me crying, Narelle, because I'm Kathy, I'm a crier. No, thank you. I really appreciate it too, because it's like, I look at what you do and it's such important work. And the fact that, you came onto this course and we all got to learn beside each other or alongside each other. Imagine if we just get some stuff out there in the world. So thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. It was fun. I thought I was going to be like, oh, it wasn't too bad.
Oh, good. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank you so much for joining me for today's Simply Happy conversation. If you'd like a clutter-free home and clear mental space to be able to focus and get stuff done, then join me for an introduction to Yin Yoga. These Yin Yoga shapes have been selected to balance your base and heart chakra so that you feel grounded, supported, accepted and connected and can reduce mental and physical clutter in your life. Get immediate access to the free short videos and take the first step towards a clutter-free home and mind. Head to simplyhappy.com.au in the resource section and start today. I'd like to acknowledge the Wathaurong people of the Kulin Nation on which this podcast is recorded as the traditional custodians of the land. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.